Remind me again how we got a movie that's a weird biopic, heartfelt comedy, Hallmarky esque. I don't know what to call it, genre film on a guy that's involved with military training, domestic abuse, robbing a McDonald's, Toys R Us in Circuit City, and apparently hiding out for 6 months. Remind me how we got this. So, I went and saw Roofman at one of my favorite places of all time, Synergy Entertainment, aka Synergy Cinemas. And I I have more questions than answers. Embrace yourself because this episode's going to be a little longer than the usual 10 to 12 minutes. Just forewarning right now. It's hard to put into words how I really feel about this film. Because, for one, in order to talk about the film, you actually have to talk about the story behind the film, which you have to sort of acknowledge kind of where this all came from. And to even get into the brass tacks of the movie, we have to talk about the brass tacks of the actual story. There was a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Manchester. And Jeffrey Allen Manchester, he was born 1971 of December 31st. He was a American criminal who had a very interesting pattern of activities involving breaking and entering into certain locations by drilling holes through their roofs and sneaking in through air ducts and other means. And yeah, the guy attended high school in California. He enlisted in the U.S. Army. He served in the Airborne Division. He learned about rappelling, weapons handling, and other skills he would use that would actually deem useful when he, committed robberies. He actually got married at age 20, but divorced in 1999 while serving at his naval weapons station. And prior to his robbery spree, he actually was employed at McDonald's at one point. Well, apparently he had enough basic information to, basically decide, hey, I'm just going to rob the McDonald's in November 1998. And he was planning on basically just observing very keenly and remotely how just everything worked, especially during the night and early morning shifts, because he just had an astute eye for detail. And yeah, basically he would rob the place carrying a firearm and held up employees that he used to work with or at other McDonald's and threw them in the walk-in refrigerator and locked them up so he could rob the cash and leave. But yet, he had a very gentle and cordial demeanor when robbing people. He rarely ever resorted to actual violence throughout his 40 to 60 estimated robberies across the country. I would assume there probably would have even been more. So, yeah. There was that. And he got captured initially after being apprehended by North Carolina police in the 2000s after robbing two McDonald's on the same day, so twice in one go. And I'm not going to go into the whole details, but basically he was caught. And he got interrogated. He confessed to the robberies, an attempt to convince the officers he was inspired by another robber he had heard of, though they suspected that Manchester had committed all the crimes committed by the Roofman. And eventually he was convicted of the two robberies. Was sentenced to 45 years in prison, and then he was transferred from several different North Carolina prisons before being sent to a correctional institution. Well, apparently he escaped the correctional institution in 2004, and then apparently he managed to successfully escape. And then upon reaching Charlotte, Manchester, or Charlottesville, I guess, or just Charlotte, Manchester actually lived in a Charlotte Toys R Us store for about, like, I want to say almost quite a bit. Yeah, between June and January of the following year, from December 2024 to about, yeah, quite a bit of time. So between June and January of the following year, after all that, because this was all during the holiday rush of December 2024, and then I guess of the following year, between June and January, he actually devised an elaborate plan to take over and rob the Toys R Us despite living there, and then, manipulate the extensive surveillance system and cameras and everything to his according. And during his time in Charlotte, he apparently not only became a member of the community, biding his time until the robbery, but eventually dated a local woman, joined a church, and he spent a large amount of his time with her children, bringing toys to the kids, and actually, well, kind of really being a gentle, really good dad, and actually getting a nice place in the community at the church, being basically a good stepdad, providing presents to the kids, even though he took the toys and didn't pay for them, and whatever. He donated toys as well too, and he even covered up his seemingly unemployment and homelessness with select whispers about a so-called highly confidential government job. So, and then, long story short, he robbed the Toys R Us. It could have gone better. And then, despite having committed the robbery, he actually didn't leave Charlotte. And then the girl, or the woman he was dating, who he believed to be a different person or a different alias, wound up helping in busting Manchester to get him back to prison. And so ever since his January recapture of that year, he had a December trial that found him guilty of numerous more charges related to those crimes, including actually burning down a dentist office where he got teeth work done. And yeah, he attempted more prison escapes in 2009 and then again in 2017. But his current expected release date is in 2036. So not too far from now, in about 11 years. So he's got 11 more years to go. So, obviously I kind of sort of butchered or skimmed through the actual story of the guy, which, how is it that you make a weird sort of, I don't even know what genre to put this film in. It's like a biopic, but it's also a based on true events film, but it's also a comedy, but it also is a love story, and it's kind of Hallmarky-esque, but like it also tries to tell this more darker tone, but it sort of implies it, but it also doesn't imply it, but it doesn't skip over as many details about the actual legacy or the story of this guy, but it skips over some details. It's an interesting film, to say the least, right? And first off, Channing Tatum is the one who plays Manchester, which, fun fact, Channing Tatum actually went to the prison that Manchester's in and sat down and talked to him, and he was an actual, like, advisor on the film, which I don't know how that whole legality worked, but sure. Which that brings the question, if they made a film based on this guy, would Manchester get any of the money or royalties from this film, or would it just go to the prison? But I'm thinking too much of logistics. The point is, I want to get into the negative first before I get into the positives. This film does not know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be funny. It doesn't know if it wants to do this more seriously. It doesn't know if it wants to be a Hallmark romance movie. It doesn't know if this film wants to be like a based on true events thing and be entirely serious. It doesn't know what to cut out, what to keep in. It just sort of gives you sort of a bullet point idea, like a PowerPoint idea, a summary of this guy's actual life, but done through the Hollywood sort of, oh, that's kind of funny and kind of cute, but you're supposed to feel empathetic for the guy kind of thing. And keep in mind, this is a guy that actually has had, like, robberies, committed arson, domestic abuse, escaped from prison, like, actually has a rap sheet. So, and I don't say the word often, but an actual rap sheet. He's been in the military before, like, it's weird. Because even in the movie, especially during the film's credits, and this is not a spoiler, so don't worry, it actually shows footage of news reports based on what actually happened with the guy in the credits and gives you an idea of who this guy was. But here's the thing. Despite everything, everyone has said that this guy was also like one of the nicest, gentlest, kindest guys. Like even on, what I'm reading online, even though he committed robberies, he would maintain a very gentle, cordial, calm demeanor. He would rarely ever resort to actual violence. He was only in it for the money. And, like, he even gave some victims, like, suggested donning a coat before entering a freezer and being locked up in the freezer. He really connected with this woman that he was dating. He really connected with church. He really turned his life around, even though he was on the run. So, like, he had this sort of, like, aha moment after his life kind of went on a downward spiral a little bit, and then he had a chance to have a sort of second life, a redo. But because he was still on the run, that obviously didn't work. And credit's due. Channing Tatum does a wonderful job as an actor, and he portrays this character based on this guy really well. So that is not the issue. That's actually a positive for me. that I still can kind of look at like the actual story of this guy and then separate that from Tatum's performance and actually be like, oh no, this minus a few cuts here and there, this is like pretty close and accurate to everything. The story is a rather interesting story, to say the least. And it is a rather interesting film to make. I mean, Kristen Dunst does a great job. All the supporting cast does a great job. Like, the movie is entertaining and it is engaging. And it's a very interesting movie that, like, has some heart to it, has some soul to it, and has a little comedy to it, and also has a serious sort of looming tone to it too. Like, this is not a good guy you're rooting for, clearly, but this is also not entirely a bad guy you're rooting for. Like I say, this is one of those characters that you really can't judge it entirely all black and white. And I like that about the film. It presents to you almost everything about this guy and who he was. That is another positive for the film. You're not really skipping a beat for the most part. The negative I have is that this film doesn't know exactly what type of tone it wants to set for this adaptation. It's kind of all over the place. And I kind of said it best in the earlier part of the review, which is it's got beats of like a Hallmark love story kind of thing. It's got beats of a comedy. It's also got this sort of darker undertone and seriousness to it. But it's also a based on true events sort of biopic flick. It's a lot that's sort of jumbled together. And the runtime on this thing is not like a bad thing at all. In fact, here, runtime for the actual thing was 2 hours. Less if you left, during the credits, but the credits are worth watching too. But it is very interesting because a lot of people actually really liked this film too. It's got an 86-85% on Rotten Tomatoes in the popcorn meter. And IMDb even has it at like a 7.1. So, like, it's a good film. But it's not like it's the greatest film. But it's also and I think someone said it best, it's a very disarmingly sweet, tonal sort of gear shift back and forth. Like, it's trying to navigate different directions and drive this thing on sort of a bumpy road with its tone. So, like, it's a true story that definitely had to be told on film. It's definitely a good film. It's surprisingly funny. It's heartfelt. It's got great performances. It's also very serious. And it's a very strange but entertaining film. But, like, it just doesn't know what it wants to do sometimes. Also, normally I make comments about how, like, oh, well, what about the musical score? What about, like, the forced comedy? What about all this stuff? What about, like, the actual plot? What about this and that? Those rules actually don't apply to this film. because this film doesn't present itself like it is a normal film, like I normally break down the criteria with. It's more of you kind of have to take this film at face value for what kind of story it's trying to adapt, and based on an actual person, an actual event, and true events. And it is a good film, but it's just, it doesn't, when it sticks on one type of tone, the pacing is good on the tone and it sticks there for a while, but it doesn't know how to get out of first gear and second gear correctly, like I say. So it is interesting, to say the least. Would I recommend this film? Actually, yeah. Go see it at Synergy Cinemas or Synergy Entertainment. Or, see it whenever you can. Preferably at Synergy, of course. But, go see the film. Go enjoy it. Know going in that this is based on an actual guy and a series of events and what happened. Know going in that this film is based on a gentleman that is very much still alive, by the way. And he is currently still in prison, and he's got 11 years left on his sentence. So, once he's out and about, if he gets out and about, know that, and I guess I didn't think there'd be a moral to this episode, but I guess the moral is not all things with people who you think are criminals are seen as black and white. It is not all one way or the other way. Sometimes in life, even with people who have a criminal history, life is very complicated. It's very messy. It's very interwoven. It shifts very dramatically, just like normal life. Sometimes things are just gray and in the middle. And, not to bring up a little political statement at the end of this review, but maybe if we actually provided proper mental health in this country and proper resources for people who are combating, trying to fit back into society after being a veteran or in the military or army or some sort of government program, providing more food sources for these people, preventing homelessness, providing resources like a roof over their head, a hot shower, a secure job, and providing more mental and physical health and stability to get them back on their feet. If this country actually believed in doing that, then maybe stories like this and movies like this wouldn't even have existed. And if we were better as a country taking care of our own people, regardless of some of their history, maybe things are not so black and white either when it comes to the world we all try and survive in. And maybe if we unified together, maybe we can do something positive about it. Special thanks to Synergy Cinemas and Synergy Entertainment for sponsoring this episode. Go see Roofman. Go watch it. It's actually, despite my issue and issues, it is a good film. Go enjoy.